Okay, guys. So looking at density, what we mean by deriving density units. The density units are derived by the density equation. So if you remember back in physical science, when you were looking at density, they probably showed you this equation where density equals mass divided by volume. And then they also showed you the density formula triangle, and they told you that D was equal to density, M was mass, and V, I have velocity, but that is definitely not velocity. That's a typo. It is a volume. So you had to manipulate either the triangle or you had to rearrange the density formula to figure out the answer to the question. So for example, you had an equation or you had a problem that said something like this: 15 kilogram piece of zinc metal is placed in water and found to have a volume of 2.10 liters. What is the density? So you had to plug it in and you had to say, well, density is equal to mass divided by volume. So you had 15.0 kilograms divided by 2.10 liters, and you plugged it in and you found that the density of this piece of zinc was 7.143 and kilograms over liters. And we're going to make it fit what we learned, that we have to have the right number of sig figs. So here we've got 3. So 1, 2, 3. We're going to round this up or down depending on its neighbor. So we get 7.14 kilograms per liter. All right, and we could solve some problems like that. Everything's good because that's easy. It's mass divided by volume. But what happens if I were to give you density and ask you to find volume? And then here we have to go and we have to manipulate the equation. So you had to do two things. You had to remember the equation, and then you had to go and you had to remember your algebra skills, right? And if we were solving for volume, we had to rearrange that equation to solve for volume. So we had to do, okay, well, to get V alone, we got to get it on the other side. And then we're left with this. All right, and we're solving for volume, so I've got to get rid of the D. All right, and then we have this, right? We had to do all of that. Or you could have used your, you had to remember the triangle, and then you had to say, okay, I'm solving for V, so I've got to cover up the V, so I get M over D. There was a whole bunch of memorization. So what I'm going to teach you is how to use the density units as a conversion factor. And then you no longer have to really remember all of these steps. So let's take a look.